The accusation hung in the air, a poisonous mist in the dim light of their bedroom. "You are the reason I am not rich." Amaka stared at her husband, Uche, the man she had met in the hopeful July of 2020. They were both fresh graduates, their futures a blank canvas of possibility. Now in 2025, he was painting her as a monster, his personal curse. His eyes, once bright with ambition, were now dark pools of resentment. "It's not just me," he continued, his voice low and chilling. "My sisters went to make inquiries. The spiritual people confirmed it. They said you are the problem. You are an agbanje." The word, a label for a mystical harbinger of bad luck, felt like a physical blow. In 2025, she thought with a hysterical edge, and we are blaming failures on witchcraft. But this was no longer just an argument. It was a conviction he held with a terrifying fervor. He had woven a narrative where she was the central villain, the spider at the center of a web of his misfortunes. She remembered the man he was when they met. He was working, doing wallpaper, window blinds, and construction. He wasn't wealthy, but he had drive. She had been into him, genuinely wanting to build a life with him, turning away from the rich men she knew and their condescending ways. She had seen a future with him, and for a fleeting moment, they had touched that future. In 2023, he made money. He bought his first car. Hope was a tangible thing, but then the wrong investment started. He bought land, only to find out they had been scammed. The dream of building their own home crumbled to dust, taking their savings with it. They were back to zero. From that year till now, the cycle began. He would wake up and, with no study or planning, launch into a new business, a restaurant, a merchandising hustle, a transport service, 5 in total. Each one would bloom briefly before crashing spectacularly. He was the kind of person who would jump into the deep end without learning to swim and then blame the water for being wet. The last venture had been the pig farm. For a beautiful, fleeting period, it was doing well. The animals were healthy, the market was good. Amaka had dared to hope again. Then, as suddenly as he started it, he began processing travel papers. The dream of abroad consumed him, and he sold the farm. Just like that, another dream dismantled by his own impatience. And through it all, she had been the pillar. When he had that issue, the time he tried to sleep with her sister, a betrayal that still felt like a fresh wound, all his friends had left him. He had said she was the reason for that too, but she had stayed. She had carried the family financially, clothing him, feeding them, buying fuel for his generator, introducing him to her contacts to find work. Now, the visa denials, multiple crushing rejections, were also her fault. Her bad luck was a stain on his passport. The final chilling declaration came one night as she was nursing their 2-month-old daughter. "I don't want this marriage anymore," he said, his voice flat. "I cannot continue. Our baby will grow up not respecting me because you do most of the providing for her." The logic was so twisted, so self-serving, it stole her breath. Her providing, her relentless work, started again just 3 weeks after childbirth, her body not yet healed, all to keep them afloat and not lose her customers, was now a weapon against her. She had accepted the separation. Her spirit, battered and bruised, could no longer fight the delusion, but she didn't know how to go about it. Her world was collapsing for the second time. Her first marriage had failed, and now he was using that as further proof of her cursed nature. "You are bad luck," he'd sneered. "That's why your first marriage did not work. The spiritualist said I will continue to be under you, that you will be the head." A bitter laugh caught in her throat. Is there even a single woman on earth that wants to be head of a family? All she wanted was her baby girl's lifestyle to be secure. She wanted a partner, not a title won through emotional combat. Now, in the suffocating silence of their failing home, she sat with her baby girl, a miracle she thought she would never have. Her body was breaking under the strain. The tears came in torrential waves, leaving her head aching and her stomach in knots. The stress had even stolen her milk. She was no longer lactating well. She couldn't even cry for long. The baby's needs a constant grounding pull from the brink of despair. And in the midst of this cataclysm, the world demanded normalcy. She still had to go to work. She still had to smile for customers. She still had to provide. "Mama," she whispered into the void, "second marriage is failing again. Am I really an evil child?" The question echoed in the silence, a terrifying suspense that gripped her heart. Was she? Had some unseen force truly marked her for sorrow? Or was she simply trapped in the wreckage of a man's refusal to face his own reflection? A man who would rather set his world on fire than admit he was the one holding the match. The answer would determine not just her future, but the future of the tiny, innocent life she held in her arms. The suspense of what came next was a heavier burden than any she had ever carried. The doors she should never have opened. The night it began, the sky over their compound was unnaturally still. No breeze, no sound. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. Chiamaka sat alone on the edge of her bed, her daughter asleep beside her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her mind was racing through every insult, every accusation, every spiritual label thrown at her like stones meant to break bone. Agbanje, evil child, source of failure. It wasn't the words that hurt the most. It was the conviction in Uche's eyes when he said them. He believed them. His sisters believed them. And after days and nights of emotional torture, a small, trembling part of her began to fear it might be true. That was the crack the darkness used to enter. The whisper. It started faintly, a distant hum like wind moving through dry grass. But there was no wind. The house was silent. The sound came again, this time closer, inside her head. "You can prove them wrong." Chiamaka froze. Her heart thudded painfully. She looked at her daughter, who slept peacefully, unaware of the shift happening in her mother's spirit. "You can help him, help your marriage, help your destiny. Let me show you how." It wasn't a voice that used words. It was a voice she felt, like breath against the back of her neck. She clutched her chest, trying to steady her breathing. "No," she whispered to herself. "I am a Christian. I won't." But the whisper slid through her defenses like smoke. "You prayed, you fasted, you cried. The heavens stayed silent. Maybe help is not above. Maybe help is beneath." The room grew colder. The bulb flickered. Chiamaka shut her eyes tightly and began to pray, but the words jingled in her mouth like broken glass. Her faith felt hollow, stretched thin by exhaustion and fear. The whisper grew softer, sympathetic, almost maternal. "You want peace. You want him to see you. You want your baby to have a father. Come, just come. Let us help you." And though she didn't answer, the whisper already knew the truth. She was listening. The decision. The next morning she woke up weak, eyes bruised from lack of sleep. Customers called her. She forced cheer into her voice. She fed her baby. She cleaned. She kept moving, because if she stopped, the pain would swallow her whole. By evening, she reached her breaking point. Uche, in a final display of callousness, told her, "I've told my pastor. He said spiritual cleansing must be done on you. If you don't agree, I'm ending everything this week." Her skin went cold. The pastor he mentioned was notorious, a man people whispered about in the market. Strange altars, strange solutions, strange results. She knew what Uche wanted, validation, proof that she was the problem. He had already judged her. Now he wanted someone to sentence her. That night, for the first time in her life, despair outweighed fear of the unknown. And so she did something she never imagined she would. She picked up her phone and dialed a number that had been given to her months ago by a customer. "If you ever feel overwhelmed, call Mama Azuka. She helps women who carry heavy spiritual burdens." At the time, Chiamaka had laughed it off. "Tonight," she called. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, smooth, low, ancient. I've been expecting you. Chiamaka felt something crawl across her skin. Mama Azuka. Mama Azuka's shrine wasn't in the forest like she expected. It was in a regular compound house in the outskirts of town, painted orange and lined with palm fronds. There were children playing outside. Worship music drifted from a neighbor's window. It looked ordinary. That was the first deception. Mama Azuka sat in the parlor, wearing white from head to toe. Her smile was warm, too warm. "Sit, my daughter. You look tired." Chiamaka sat hesitantly, clutching her baby against her chest. "Mama," she whispered, "my husband says I am the reason he is not successful. He says I am cursed." Mama Azuka nodded knowingly. "You want to fix it so he can see your worth." Chiamaka's tears fell instantly. "Yes." "And you want your marriage to survive." "Yes." "And you don't want your daughter to grow up in shame." "Yes." Mama Azuka sighed deeply, as though burdened by compassion. "My daughter, the spirit world is deeper than the sea. Everything happening to you has a root, but you are not the cause." Relief washed over Chiamaka, and that was the moment Mama Azuka struck. "But someone has tied your destiny, someone very close." Chiamaka's stomach twisted. "Who?" Mama Azuka smiled sadly. "That is what we must find out." She stood, walked into a back room, and returned holding a calabash filled with dark water. "When you look into this, you will see the truth. But once you open your eyes to the spirit world, the spirit world will also open its eyes to you." A chill ran down Chiamaka's spine. She wanted to run. She wanted to leave, but she also wanted answers. Slowly, fearfully, she looked into the calabash, and the water shifted. It twisted, it darkened. Then she saw something. No, someone, a woman, standing behind her, shadowy, watching. The image dissolved. Chiamaka gasped and dropped the calabash, stumbling backward. What was that? Who was that?" Mama Azuka's eyes gleamed. "That, my daughter, is the spirit that has been following you since you were a child." Chiamaka's heart pounded violently. "No, no, Mama, I am a child of God." "You are," Mama Azuka said gently, "but even children of God can carry generational markings." Her voice softened to a whisper. "I can free you, and free your marriage, but the process is costly." Chiamaka swallowed hard. "What must I do?" Mama Azuka smiled, a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Bring me something that carries your blood, and something that carries your daughter's." Chiamaka froze. Her arms instinctively tightened around her baby. "Mama." "Why, my daughter?" Mama Azuka's tone remained soothing. "Your destinies are tied. To free you, we must free her too." Something inside Chiamaka screamed, something ancient and protective, but despair drowned it out. She nodded slowly. "I will come tomorrow." Mama Azuka's smile widened. "I will be waiting." The night things changed. That night, as Chiamaka slept, something stood at the foot of her bed. Not human, not spirit, something between. It watched her baby, and it whispered, "Come deeper." Chiamaka stirred in her sleep, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes. She didn't know it yet, but she had opened a door that would not close easily, a door that had been waiting years for her to knock. And now it wanted more. Chiamaka barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the shadowy woman from the calabash, standing behind her, breathing softly in the darkness of her mind. Morning light brought no comfort. Her body felt weak. Her spirit felt unraveled. Her daughter whimpered in her sleep, as though sensing the shift around her mother. Chiamaka tried to pray, but her words felt empty, weightless, as though they rose 2 inches, then fell back to the ground. She felt disconnected, spiritually dislocated. Still, she dressed herself and wrapped her daughter on her back. She took with her the 2 items Mama Azuka demanded: a piece of her blood-stained cloth from childbirth, a lock of her baby's hair. She placed them in a plastic bag and hid it deep inside her handbag. Her hands trembled. She kept whispering, It's for the good of my daughter. It's for our freedom," as though the repeated lie would form into truth if spoken enough times. When she reached Mama Azuka's compound, the air shifted instantly. Children who had been playing paused mid-run and stared at her, their eyes too perceptive, too knowing, as if they recognized something on her she did not. Mama Azuka emerged before she even knocked. "You brought them," she said, not asked, her voice eerily calm. Chiamaka nodded, her throat dry. "Good. Come inside. We begin now." The back room. The back room smelled of camphor, smoke, and something metallic, like old blood. Symbols were drawn on the floor with white chalk. A clay pot glowed faintly from within, as though something lived inside it. Chiamaka's daughter stirred, uneasy. "Put the child on the mat," Mama Azuka instructed. Chiamaka hesitated. Her spirit screamed, but she moved anyway. Mama Azuka took the items from her, then poured them into the glowing pot. The flames turned blue instantly. "Sit," she commanded. Chiamaka sat. Mama Azuka began chanting, not in Igbo, not in Yoruba, not in any language Chiamaka had heard before. The words vibrated the walls, the air, the bones in her body. The shadows in the room thickened, stretching like oil. The flame in the pot swirled violently. Then something stepped forward. Not Mama Azuka, not human. The air grew unbearably cold, and from the corner of the room the shadow woman emerged, the same one from the calabash, tall, faceless, dark as the bottom of the ocean. She moved closer to Chiamaka's daughter. "Mama!" Chiamaka cried, scrambling forward. But Mama Azuka caught her wrist with surprising strength. "Let her come. This is the one who has walked with you since childhood." The shadow woman reached toward the baby, and the baby let out a shrill scream unlike anything Chiamaka had ever heard. Something primal ignited inside Chiamaka. She tore her wrist from Mama Azuka's grip, grabbed her baby, and stumbled backward. "Stop the ritual!" she shouted, shaking. Mama Azuka's face hardened. "You don't understand. If you stop now, the spirit will attach to your daughter fully. She will never be free again." Chiamaka sobbed in panic. "What do you want from us?" Mama Azuka's eyes glowed faintly. "Your daughter's destiny is powerful. That spirit wants to claim her before her light grows. This ritual was to bind it away." "No," a voice whispered behind them. The shadow woman spoke at last. Her voice sounded like wind through broken glass. "She lies." Chiamaka froze. Mama Azuka stiffened. The shadow lifted her faceless head slowly. "I was never tied to you. I was sent here by someone who fears your destiny, not someone who owns it." Chiamaka felt her blood run cold. "Sent by who?" she whispered through trembling lips. The shadow shifted. "Your husband." The room exploded into chaos. The pot shattered. The flames turned black. The wind roared. Mama Azuka screamed, covering her ears. The house shook as though the walls were protesting. Chiamaka grabbed her daughter and ran, stumbling out of the shrine, out of the compound, out into the burning sunlight. She never looked back, but she knew, in that instant, she had entered a war she didn't understand, and it had only just begun. The baby becomes the target. Strange things began immediately after the aborted ritual. 1. The cry that wasn't human. That night, as Chiamaka tried to sleep, she heard her daughter crying, but the cry wasn't from her baby's mouth. It came from the ceiling. She looked up, eyes widening, as the shadow woman crouched on the ceiling like a spider, mimicking her baby's wail. Chiamaka screamed, grabbed her daughter, and fled the room. But no one else saw anything. The shadow was attached, not to the house, but to her. 2. The dreams. Every night, Chiamaka dreamt of water, deep water, dark water, hands pulling her down. In the water was Uche, laughing. "She's mine now," he would whisper. "Your daughter is mine." She would wake up drenched in sweat, her daughter whimpering beside her. 3. The baby's eyes. One afternoon, while feeding her child, Chiamaka noticed her baby staring intensely at a corner of the room, eyes wide, fixed, as if seeing something no one else could. Then the baby giggled, but there was nothing there, nothing visible. Chiamaka's blood went cold. She knew what it meant. The spirit wasn't after her anymore. It wanted her daughter. The truth revealed. On the third night, unable to bear the torment, Chiamaka went to her late grandmother's Bible, the one her grandmother always said had oil that never runs dry. When she opened it, a folded note fell out, handwritten, familiar. It was her grandmother's handwriting. If the child is marked, seek the prophet called the Watcher at the Gate. He alone sees both worlds. Chiamaka did not waste time. She found him in a small church at the edge of town, a tiny place with no microphone, no glamour, no crowd, just a man in a white shirt, praying softly. When she entered, he stopped praying and lifted his head slowly. "Chiamaka," he said, without being told her name. Her knees weakened. "Please, help me," she whispered. He pointed to the chair before she could explain anything. Then he said words that made her entire body tremble. "Your husband is not the cause of his failures. You are not the cause either. There is something older at play, a pact made before you were born." Chiamaka swallowed hard. "What? Pact?" He looked at her daughter instead. "She is the one the spirit wants, not you, because she carries fire in her destiny, a light meant to burn down certain altars, altars that benefit certain people." He rose to his feet and walked to the window. "The spirit was not sent by your husband. No, your husband is merely a channel, a loud drum. The real enemy is someone who has watched you quietly for years, a person who would lose everything if your daughter fulfills her calling." Chiamaka's heart pounded. "Who?" The prophet turned slowly, his face grave, his voice steady. "Your husband's elder sister." Chiamaka's breath caught. He continued, "She went to a native place long before you married her brother. She tied his destiny so he would always serve her children. And when you entered his life, carrying a brighter star, her charms began to fail." The prophet pointed at Chiamaka's daughter. "Your child came to break what she built. That is why the darkness fights her so violently." Chiamaka grabbed her baby protectively. "What must I do to save her?" He approached her gently. "Spiritual battles are not won by fear or darkness. They are won by alignment. You must return to the God your grandmother served, not the one in loud churches, but the one who sees in secret." Chiamaka's eyes filled with tears. "Will my baby survive this?" The prophet touched the child's forehead. "She will survive, but the one who fought her will not." The next day, everything began to unravel. Uche's sister, Amaka, arrived unexpectedly. She barged into the compound with her luggage, her face tight with irritation. "I heard my brother is planning divorce," she said coldly. "I came to confirm." Chiamaka felt the air change instantly. Her daughter whimpered the moment Amaka stepped into the house. Then the lights flickered. The shadow woman appeared briefly behind Amaka, not attached to Chiamaka this time, but standing behind Amaka like a loyal dog behind its master. Chiamaka's stomach dropped. This was the sender. This was the hand behind everything. That night, while everyone slept, the atmosphere in the house shifted drastically. The wind howled, the windows rattled, the baby screamed so loudly the bulb burst overhead. Amaka rushed into the room shouting, "What nonsense is this?" And then something grabbed her. Not human hands. Something invisible dragged her toward the wall. She screamed, clawing at the floor. Chiamaka froze in terror. The shadow woman materialized, tall, monstrous, no longer calm, eyes glowing like cold stars. "You invited me, now pay what you owe." Amaka shrieked, "No, leave me. I didn't finish the rituals. She's supposed to." The shadow cut her off. "The child came with a fire stronger than your charm. Your time is over." The house roared with spiritual force. Lights burst. Doors slammed. Amaka's screams shattered into silence as she fainted. Then everything went still. The shadow woman turned to Chiamaka. For the first time since this began, she knelt. "I was bound to serve darkness, but your daughter's destiny has broken my chains." The shadow dissolved into particles of light, faint, soft, freed. The house became calm. The oppressive weight lifted. Chiamaka held her daughter close, tears flowing freely. She did not need any prophet to confirm what she already knew. Her child was protected, chosen, untouchable. The next morning, Amaka packed her bags in pale, trembling silence and left without a word. Uche tried to return later, claiming confusion, sorrow, regret. But something in Chiamaka had changed. Strength, clarity, alignment. She looked at him with calm resolve. "Go," she said quietly. "Your storm is not my home anymore." He left, and this time, he never came back. Light after darkness. Months passed. Peace returned. Chiamaka rebuilt her life. Her daughter grew, bright and joyful, laughter chasing shadows away from every room. And sometimes, just sometimes, when her daughter was playing alone, a soft breeze would circle around her, warm and protective. Chiamaka knew who it was, the shadow woman, no longer a tormentor, now a guardian. Light had transformed what darkness meant for evil, and Chiamaka finally understood. She was never cursed. She was never the reason for anyone's failure. She was the mother of a child whose destiny terrified darkness, and in protecting that child, she found her own destiny too.